This is why South Korea keeps expanding its territory. Welcome to the latest episode of Top Secret. Can you believe it? South Korea is astonishing the world as it expands its territory right before our eyes, day by day. At Samangeum, a large-scale project is transforming the land, turning the vast coastal area into a bustling and magnificent metropolis. Here are the natural English translations for your Vietnamese text. South Korea is continuously expanding its territory and developing its infrastructure. In 1998, if you stood on the shores of the Yellow Sea within South Korean territory, you could admire one of the planet's most expansive estuarine systems. Where the waters merge with the evening tide, vast mudflats once stretched over 27,000 hectares. But now, that scene has completely changed. The large-scale land reclamation project at the Samangeum River estuary has turned the Chu Fu area into a bustling construction site, with aspirations to build a vibrant and magnificent megacity. However, behind those impressive figures and bold plans lies another story: the degradation of the ecosystem, the loss of resting grounds for migratory birds, and the upended lives of thousands of fishermen. This article will guide you through the reasons why Korea is expanding its territory in practice. This project not only has profound consequences for people but also severely impacts nature. At the end of the 20th century, the Samangeum estuary along the Yellow Sea coast, South Korea, was once a breathtaking natural wonder. A land where the earth and sea harmoniously blend, creating the lush and vibrant ecosystem of Chu Fu. Covering an area of over 27,000 hectares, this region is the confluence of two major rivers, the Mongjiang River to the north and the Dongguan River to the south. Where the fresh water meets the open sea, vast mudflats stretch endlessly, bathed in the glow of twilight. These mudflats, though rich in nutrients from alluvial soil, have become natural treasures, providing an abundant source of food for both animals and humans. When the tide recedes, the mudflats emerge, glistening under the sunlight, transforming into a paradise for hundreds of thousands of migratory birds. From tiny seabirds to rare waterfowl like spoonbills and glossy ibises, they gather in dense flocks, creating a spectacular sight as they soar through the sky or swoop down to forage from waters rich in fish, clams, and other mollusks. Samangeum is not only a crucial stopover on the East Asia-Australia migratory route, but also an embodiment of the bountiful richness that nature has generously bestowed. Not only a habitat for various bird species, the Samangeum forest also sustains over 40,000 fishermen and seafood harvesters, people whose lives have been deeply intertwined with this land for generations. Every day, around 400 fishing boats from coastal villages dock, bringing in fresh catches of fish, clams, and various other seafood to supply the bustling markets in Seoul and Incheon. Those boats do not merely bring back food supplies, but also contribute to nurturing the local economy, where fishing and seafood harvesting are considered the backbone of economic life. The mudflats are not only a food source for birds but also a precious resource for humans, where marine products are sustainably harvested. In the 1970s and 1980s, Samangeum was renowned as a vibrant culinary destination. Numerous sashimi restaurants lined the coast, drawing crowds of both tourists and locals eager to savor fresh seafood. Around the harbor, the streets are always bustling with traffic, alive with the sound of laughter and chatter. This place has become a vibrant destination where culinary culture and the local economy blend seamlessly, creating a harmonious picture of people and nature. At that time, Samangeum was not merely a land, but also a symbol of balance, a place where people knew how to cherish and live in harmony with nature. The fishermen, with knowledge passed down through generations from their ancestors, deeply understand the value of the mudflats and the ebbing tide. They practice their craft with reverence for the sea, taking only what they need to sustain their families without depleting the natural bounty. A sashimi restaurant is not merely a place to serve cuisine, but also a space that preserves stories of the sea, of fishermen's long, challenging voyages and the joy they bring back with boatloads of fresh, bountiful catches. All blend together to create a radiant Samangeum, where nature and humanity join hands to write a beautiful, meaningful chapter of history. However, by the 1990s, things gradually changed as South Korea entered a period of remarkable economic growth. Facing the relentless population growth and increasingly urgent land use demands, the government has turned its vision toward the sea in search of solutions. With its vast area and strategic location, Samangeum has become the target of an ambitious land reclamation project. The goal is to transform waterlogged mudflats into dry land for agricultural production, industrial development, and urbanization. The once lively mudflats, filled with the songs of birds and the sound of crashing waves, now face the risk of disappearing completely. making way for modern urban construction projects with skyscrapers and advanced infrastructure systems. The story of Samangium is not merely about Korea's territorial expansion, but also conceals a profound and consequential trade-off, where economic ambition clashes with the duty to protect nature. This is a difficult problem, not only for South Korea but also a challenge for the entire world, when faced with the choice between building the future and preserving precious natural values. Here are the natural English translations based on your guidelines. In the 1970s, South Korea was still a small country with a landscape dominated by rugged mountains, in areas where farmland is scarce while the population is rapidly growing. The food shortage is becoming an urgent concern, compelling the government to pay special attention. When agricultural land is reduced due to mountains occupying most of the territory. To address this issue, the leadership chose a bold approach: territorial expansion. That is the process of reclaiming land from the sea. They realized that tidal flats and shallow coastal waters could be reclaimed as land. In 1984, South Korea's military government proposed an incredibly bold land reclamation project. Focus on coastal areas with high potential. After conducting thorough research, the experts concluded that 2/3 of the areas in this region, it can be converted into land for agricultural production, industrial activities, and other development purposes. Among the surveyed areas, the Samangium estuary stands out for its flat and favorable terrain. With its small capes and islets, this place becomes an ideal location for construction. The land reclamation project in Samangium was officially launched in 1991. Originally aimed at expanding agricultural land to ensure national food security. This is not an ordinary project, but the world's largest coastal land reclamation endeavor, carried out from the 1990s to the early 2000s. Captured the attention of the international community. The South Korean government has mobilized a large workforce and equipment to implement this large-scale project, consisting of approximately 300 workers and 180 heavy-duty equipment units. This includes 113 dump trucks with a capacity of 15 tons, 38 forklifts, and 1 large barge that have been put into operation. The first task is to construct a 550-meter-long, 10-meter-wide dam to block the strong tidal flow in the Samangium Basin. The work began with transporting soil and rocks from the outskirts, with an endless line of trucks moving in a continuous convoy. Each truck only takes 10 seconds to fill with dirt and immediately dumps it when finished. The bulldozers quickly leveled the ground, gradually building a sturdy dam, step by step holding back the sea's advance. The dam construction process faced significant challenges due to the strong water currents in the Samangium area. Materials can only be unloaded when the tide is low, while the sluice gate can only be opened when the tide is high. To ensure construction progress, workers must work continuously day and night, with each shift lasting up to 10.5 hours. In the final 3 days of the critical construction phase, they worked non-stop for 21 hours a day, despite the harsh conditions. To facilitate nighttime construction, rows of temporary lights were installed along the worksite, casting their glow through the darkness. When the dam was completed, the work moved on to the next phase, draining the water through the spillways, turning the flooded area into dry land. Unlike traditional renovation methods that merely involve basic dumping of soil and rocks, the Samangium project has implemented a far more scientific and systematic solution. After blocking the tidal flow, they proceeded to drain the water from the area, then raised the ground level according to the plan to expand the space, creating a vast new land ready for development projects. However, the complexity of the project is not only reflected in the technical aspects of construction but also in the environmental and social impacts it generates. The construction of tidal barriers and drainage systems has completely transformed the Samangium region's ecosystem, causing the fertile mudflats to disappear. This has not only severely impacted wildlife but also directly affected the livelihoods of the local fishing communities. This project is expected to bring significant economic benefits, but it also poses major challenges in balancing development and conservation, a difficult dilemma that South Korea must address in the 21st century. Environmental consequences and ecosystem degradation. When the land reclamation project in Samangium began, everything changed rapidly and visibly as soon as the tide receded. The vast mudflats that once stretched across thousands of hectares, teeming with life, now lie parched under the scorching sun. Soft-bodied animals like clams, mussels, and other seafood were washed ashore, unable to survive without the nourishing seawater they depend on. Thousands of hectares of mudflats littered with decomposing animal carcasses have become a haunting sight, a stark reminder of the fragility of the ecosystem. In just a short time, the carcasses of these animals became a temporary food source for migratory birds, drawing thousands of waterfowl to take advantage of this final resource. However, when food sources became scarce, the bird population in Samangium declined drastically, with over 90% of individuals disappearing between 2006 and 2013. Every year, over 400,000 waterbirds, ranging from common species like sandpipers to rare ones, choose this place as a stopover to rest and replenish energy for their 24,000 kilometers migratory journey from the southern hemisphere, through Southeast Asia, to breeding grounds in Alaska and Russia. In this event, over 100,000 greater flamingos, equivalent to 1/3 of the global population, face severe food shortages, leaving them unable to continue their migratory journey and placing their fate in extreme peril. The aquatic ecosystem in Samangium has also been severely affected. The estuary's water level dropped from 7 meters to just 2 meters, leaving 370 out of 400 fishing boats stranded and unable to operate. The remaining waters quickly became polluted, causing seafood species such as clams, once an abundant resource in the area, to gradually deplete. Maritime culinary culture. However, the sector, around 25,000 fishermen, whose livelihoods have depended for generations on the bounty of the river mouth, have now suddenly lost their means of survival. The once bustling sashimi restaurants, usually packed with tourists and locals year-round, now stand eerily quiet. The road along the harbor no longer echoes with the sounds of passing cars or lively laughter. Samangium, once a bustling economic and cultural hub, has now turned into a barren wasteland. The stranded boats lie there as testaments to shattered dreams in a golden age now lost to the past. These changes come as no surprise to those who have closely followed the project. The South Korean government clearly recognized the significant economic potential of the Samangium project but remained indifferent to a series of warnings about its potential environmental consequences. For over 20 years, the project has faced fierce opposition from various groups, including environmental organizations, the scientific community, religious leaders, and local residents themselves. They worry that the destruction of the marine ecosystem will not only deprive hundreds of thousands of wildlife species of their habitats but also harm the long-term economic value of the seafood industry, the primary livelihood for tens of thousands of households. The protesters argue that Samangium is not merely a piece of land, but a natural heritage of exceptional significance, playing a vital role in maintaining ecological balance and serving as a crucial stopover for migratory birds on their journeys spanning tens of thousands of kilometers. However, the government remains steadfast in defending the project, asserting that the land expansion will drive exceptional prosperity, transform Hansan into a global economic hub, and elevate South Korea's standing on the international stage. The promise of a bright future, however ambitious, leaves many wondering whether the trade-off is truly worth it, paid for by the loss of one of the country's most precious ecosystems. Revising goals and ambitions for megacity development. Since the 1970s, when South Korea's economy began to grow rapidly, the demand for agricultural land gradually declined as rice production far exceeded domestic consumption needs. The Samangium Land Reclamation Project initially allocated 70% of the area for agriculture to ensure food security, but this is no longer suitable for the current situation. Recognizing this change, the South Korean government promptly adjusted the plan, reducing the proportion of agricultural land to 30% and allocating the remaining 70% for diverse purposes such as industrial development, commerce, and tourism. The Samangium project goes beyond just cultivation. It aims for a greater goal, transforming this area into a world-class commercial and industrial hub. The government envisions building a modern metropolis on the reclaimed land, where skyscrapers will shine brilliantly under the city lights. The vibrant flower fields and modern industrial zones coexisting side by side have created a new symbol of South Korea's development. The newly renovated area in Samangium spans a total of over 40,000 hectares, including 29,000 hectares of land and 11,000 hectares of freshwater lake surface. For easier comparison, this area is 2/3 the size of Seoul's capital or 4 times larger than Paris. If distributed equally among all South Korean citizens, each person would receive approximately an additional 10 square meters of reclaimed land. The focal point of the project is the main dam, constructed between 1991 and 2006. The dam is 34 kilometers long, with an average width of 290 meters and a height of 36 meters. This is the longest dam in the world, a monumental engineering feat that reflects South Korea's grand aspirations. According to 2021 estimates, the total project cost amounted to over 360 trillion Vietnamese dongs, with the dam construction alone consuming approximately 28 trillion Vietnamese dongs. Currently, construction projects are being accelerated to complete the seaport, road system, and Samangium Airport, aiming to transform this area into a world-class coastal urban hub, on par with leading global cities. The South Korean government expects Samangium to become a globally renowned destination. They plan to construct energy-efficient buildings, integrating a modern public transportation system with electric buses operating on magnetic rails, along with solar and wind farms to provide clean energy sources. Promises of a green city, where modern technology harmoniously blends with nature, sound truly enticing and inspiring. However, in reality, everything turned out completely the opposite. The mangrove ecosystem was once home to hundreds of thousands of migratory bird species, but now it has almost completely vanished. Rare bird species, such as the great slaty woodpecker or the spoon-billed sandpiper, they are gradually disappearing from this area due to shrinking habitats and increasingly depleted food sources. The conflict between the desire for development and the need to preserve nature leaves many wondering, can a modern city truly harmonize with nature? Or are sustainability commitments just flashy promises on paper? The Samangium project, along with its achievements and surrounding controversies, has become a prime example of the challenge in balancing economic development and environmental protection. A challenge that South Korea and the entire world must overcome on the journey to shaping the future. Recovery efforts and lessons learned for the future. Since 2007, the organization Bird Korea has continuously urged the South Korean government to restore the Samangium ecosystem by opening the floodgates. Allows seawater to flood in to restore the tidal mudflats that once belonged to their former owners. They believe this solution could not only save hundreds of thousands of migratory bird species that are losing their critical forest habitats, essential stopover sites for them. Not only that, Samangium has also become a unique and captivating ecotourism destination. This destination attracts visitors from all over the world. A revived Samangium alongside vibrant mudflats can become a symbol of harmony between humans and nature, delivering dual benefits for both the environment and the economy. However, these heartfelt proposals have yet to be approved by the South Korean government. Instead, the development plan in Samangium still focuses on the goal of accelerating urbanization. For large-scale projects such as modern tourism complexes, new seaports, and international airports. In 2023, this area was also honored to be selected as the host of the World Scout Jamboree. This event marks a turning point in Samangium's development, transforming from a flood-prone area into a modern hub, ready to reach international stature. However, the cost of this development is too high and cannot be ignored. Ecologists from Australia and the UK used Landsat satellite data to conduct their research. The study shows that 28% of the mudflat area in the Yellow Sea region has disappeared over the past 30 years. The primary cause is due to ongoing land reclamation projects along with continuous urbanization. These are not just ordinary mudflats, but also an ideal breeding ground for fish, eels, crabs, and many other mollusk species. At the same time, this place is also an important habitat for migratory bird species. The passage includes rare species such as the black-faced spoonbill and the spoon-billed sandpiper. They function as natural fueling stations, supporting birds on their migratory journeys spanning tens of thousands of kilometers. Beyond their ecological value, the mudflats in the Yellow Sea also generate significant economic benefits, estimated at approximately 690 trillion Vietnamese dongs annually, thanks to fishing activities and ecotourism development. Not only that, they also play an extremely vital role in protecting coastal residents from major storms and flooding. Acts as a natural protective shield. The disappearance of mudflats is not only a disaster for nature but also a direct threat to the lives of millions of people who depend on the sea for their livelihood. The story of Samangium is a profound and thought-provoking lesson on balancing economic development and nature conservation. South Korea has made its mark with impressive economic strides, rising from a resource-poor nation to become a leading powerhouse in technology and industry. However, the Samangium project has demonstrated that unsustainable development can lead to persistent, long-lasting consequences, not only across the natural landscape but also deep within the hearts of affected communities. The great hornbill, the red-billed blue magpie, and hundreds of thousands of other creatures have lost their familiar homes, forced to seek new foothills, or else face the risk of extinction. The fishermen who once relied on the abundant resources of the Samaneseum estuary now struggle to adapt to a harsh reality, as the sea can no longer sustain them. In the future, Korea and the entire world must explore new paths of development, enabling humanity to progress while still protecting nature. Natural wonders like Samaneseum, with their pristine beauty and exceptional ecological value, should not remain merely distant images on the pages of a book. Instead, they need to be preserved and restored, becoming invaluable assets to pass on to future generations. To remind us that only when paired with respect for nature can development truly be sustainable. Thank you for watching the video until the end. See you next time.